Brock, why'd you go on vacation? We were so close to finishing our podcast. Welcome to the Encounter Focus podcast, everyone. As you can see, for some reason, Brock valued time with his wife and sons over recording a podcast with me, so he's on vacation, and here I am. So it's going to be weird. I thought maybe in lieu of actual Brock, I would take this opportunity to audition some potential replacements for him. And to be honest, if I can for a moment while I have your attention, I've been increasingly dissatisfied with Brock's contributions on this podcast. I just feel like he phones it in. He claims to listen to these sermons, especially my sermons, but I see him just chatting backstage. He's not really. I just feel like, obviously we're going for a certain level of professionalism on these Facebook videos that we're making, and I think we can do better. I think here in the church we're about business, and we're about performance, and we're about the bottom line, and Brock's holding us back. We can do better, and we will do better. So we're going to run through a couple potential replacements, and then you guys can vote in the comment section about who you think should permanently replace Brock on this podcast moving forward. First, I'll invite our care pastor, Ted Simmons, to be a part of the podcast. If you could please not touch the mic as you sit down. Thank you. Great job.
Thank you. This is really close to my face.
What? Just please don't move the mic at all.
Move the chair.
What makes you think that you'd be qualified to be the new Brock?
That's a really tough question. I don't know. I didn't bring my scarf.
Is it because of your hair?
Yes.
Where do you buy your shoes?
Kohl's.
Kohl's. I always have good sales. My theory on Kohl's is if things are always on sale, then is anything ever actually on sale? If everything is on sale all the time, then does the sale become meaningless?
Yeah, probably. But they're still really cheap, so...
Brock would have had a more profound cultural commentary to respond to me with that. How many children do you have?
2.
Well, that's good. Brock has 2, so that's a plus.
We're tied there.
And you have hair. And
I do.
On this, if I was rating your attractiveness on a 10 scale, it'd be roughly equivalent to Brock, so just leave it there. You can interpret that however you want.
Thank you, Ryan.
I mean, adjusting for age and inflation. I don't know what that means. Could you try this scarf on for me really quick? And
You bet. Can I touch the microphone now? This is going to be challenging.
No.
I don't know how he does this. This is amazing.
This isn't going to work. You tell you what, we'll call you.
I'm sure you will.
So I see that you came prepared. You brought your own scarf to this audition.
I did.
Could you also put on that scarf?
I can.
Thank you. How many scarves would you say that you could reasonably fit around your neck?
At least 3.
Can you talk like that?
I can.
Oh, so tell me, why do you think you're the most qualified person to replace Brock on this podcast? Oh, you should probably put that mic much closer to your face.
I think I'm more fashionable.
True.
Definitely have a fashion savvy, and my affinity for women's mugs, that I'm actually a woman using this mug.
That's true. Brock loves women's mugs. You heard it here first. I always did remark on the distinct femininity of his beverage holders.
Very true.
What other things do you think you have in common with Brock?
Love of music. Love of...
The theater?
Yeah, I think so. The theatrical.
Definitely
Definitely theatrical.
You're both thespians.
Yes, indeed.
What would you say are Brock's 3 greatest weaknesses, and how could you improve upon them?
I would say the deep V's. They're getting a little too deep.
Too deep.
Too deep. Too
Interesting.
deep.
Interesting. So shallower V-necks.
Yes, or maybe just the crew cut.
Maybe
We don't
we
need-
don't need.
We all don't need to see what's
Maybe
going
by
on.
the time you're 41, it's time to just pack up shop
Yeah.
and wear a crew. I got it. Yeah. Could you try some few Brockisms on me?
I know he always loves to use the word peons.
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 Who does he call peons?
Sometimes it's in reference to just general society.
Okay.
The peons.
Everyone listening.
There's a couple times, actually a lot of the time, I just nod my head like I understand what he's saying.
Oh, peons. Yeah, inside
you
baseball.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh, sure.
We know.
Pablum, milk toast. We totally understand what you're saying.
Milk toasty.
Milk toast. It is.
Yeah.
It feels milk toasty in here. All right. Well, thank you. We'll
Yes,
we'll
you're
be in my people. Well, do you have people for my people to contact?
My husband.
Okay. Oh, nice. You have one of those progressive marriages where your husband is your secretary. Try this on, however you feel best to put it on. Oh,
I think
good.
the important part about the scarf is how dramatically you throw the tail after you put it on.
Oh.
Just my thoughts.
Oh. So Noah, what is it that you would say you do here? What? Well, actually, tell us sincerely what you are in the employ of the
Serious
church
question.
in some sense.
So what I do here is I help manage all of the audio technical needs of the church. I keep things up and running week to week.
How old are you?
I am 20 years old.
Wow. Noah reminds me of myself in college if I had talent and responsibility. Is this going to be really cringy? It
Really
feels
cringy. But let's keep going with it.
It feels really cringy. How do you think that you could improve upon what Brock's bringing to this podcast?
Well, you see, the problem is that it's a definitive fact that every single week Brock gets older.
Mm.
And, skinny jeans are only cool for so long. And
Oh,
then
wow.
it just becomes weird.
Wow.
Youth juice. That's what he calls it.
I didn't realize how important Brock is for the chemistry of keeping this thing from being a cringy series.
I think Brock's greatest talent is just reeling in the crowd
Yeah.
when it's needed. And right now, there's just no reeling in going on, and the zebras are going up and down the same escalator.
They are going up and down the escalator, but not ever going anywhere. They're not, actually making
This
it
is true.
to any of the shops, to Famous Footwear or maybe Orange Julius for some youth juice. What I've discovered through this process, I think, maybe is I need Brock. Nothing against you as you're here we'll let you finish
It's okay.
finish this out. You can still be hired by the church.
Okay.
But Brock, you're the solid ground upon which I stand. You are the wind beneath my wings. You are my anchor in a stormy harbor. Come back to me. You listen to the first 27 minutes of the sermon that was posted online.
I got the first 23 minutes and 15 seconds exactly.
Okay.
That's what I got.
What did you think? What did you think of that sermon and the Focus series overall?
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the way that the whole series sort of took a step by step through the fundamentals of what we believe.
Mhm.
I think that's a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
What I really enjoyed about this sermon was everything really wraps up into our view of the kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. And a lot of the questions we have about why we believe what we believe in and what we're called to do as believers in this world are really wrapped up in our view of the kingdom
Mm-hmm.
and its presence now and the kingdom that we also look towards.
How do you understand So I felt preparing this sermon more than most sermons that I've done in this series, at least. It's hard to preach when you don't feel like you have the tightest grip on what's happening. And I kind of confessed that from the stage a little bit and said, and partly I think it's because the Bible doesn't lay this topic out incredibly clearly.
There's a little bit of mystery.
The Bible's pretty clear about sin and about the significance of the death of Jesus and the resurrection, some of these different things. We get some real, especially Paul gives us the nugget of theology. He's here's what this means. The kingdom of God is just Jesus is telling these stories and so for you, how do you understand and articulate the idea of the present kingdom? like the kingdom of God in now, its relevance to us. How do you understand that for yourself?
It's sort of twofold the way that we view the kingdom now, because there's the element of what we are living in currently, in that our belief is grounded in the resurrection. But there's also the sense of what we're looking towards in the kingdom, as well as we're looking towards the coming revelation
Yeah.
and redemption as it's fully disclosed
Mm-hmm.
in that sense.
Yeah. The phrases I didn't use that people used in conversation with me after the sermon was already but not yet. Is a phrase that's used sometimes in reference to the kingdom. So it's already here in a sense, but it's also not yet here. Kind of this paradoxical thing. That would be N.T. Wright. That would be some other authors. I didn't use that language because it's very much like, seems like it belongs to theology land a little bit.
Yeah.
And generally the goal in preaching is to take things down from theology land and help them make sense here, and which was exceptionally hard with this. Because people will say already but not yet, and they'll use kingdom as an adjective and say like we're kingdom people and kingdom values and kingdom juice and whatever, you know what I mean? And not that people don't say kingdom juice, but I'm like, what does that actually mean? So didn't use already but not yet. The other one was like someone used the phrase upside down kingdom in reference to just how, and I kind of alluded to this in the sense of like the thing we belong to and believe and are a part of is different than what we see. And you could have leaned into this more maybe, but that just, if you're living in light of that future kingdom and knowing what we know and believing about like God's presence in the here and now, then life kind of flips on its head a little bit. And I think when they say upside down kingdom, they're talking about, you know, the Beatitudes and blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. How did you feel like it wrapped up the series?
Well, I think the really cool way that it tied everything together is it gave us both of a glimpse of the present and also what we're looking towards.
Yeah.
In that sense. So there's a lot of application, a lot of it's thought application. And the application of that, and it's kind of the ultimate question I think that we ask as believers a lot, is how do we live now in a way that's going to reflect the kingdom coming? And you know, there's a lot of different viewpoints in that. Are we in the kingdom? Are we looking towards the kingdom? And you kind of touched on that.
First of all, I'll say it's funny that you say that, because this sermon and this week of focus was originally going to be called Witness. And the idea that, you know, given everything that we've talked about, you know, our calling as individuals now and as a community is to bear witness to the things that we know to be true in the light of the inside of the world. You know, it's interesting you brought that up, because we shifted to the kingdom theme, but I think it's still core to it is like we should obviously be living like on a slightly different track than the rest of the people around us.
It's kind of the application of faith and culture.
Yeah, which is pretty big picture and vague, and I wish I could have gotten into it more. The hope would be that these things that we've talked about in focus are not just they're not just pieces of intellectual information, but that they need to be, this needs to become like lived theology for it to be impactful in our lives and in people's lives. Like, and that's ultimately what it means to like live in light of the kingdom, or with the present kingdom now, is like living out this theology. You know what I mean? If you actually belong to this kingdom, you believe these things and you are living like you believe them.
I think the other interesting thing that you touched on with that was in context of we have the longing for the greater redemption, the full kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of obsession that almost builds with waiting for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much, and it was really interesting that you sort of pulled this. It was about halfway through the sermon, where you started to talk about we're not gonna know, and living our lives in a way that is focused on living out these moments for the purpose of that greater kingdom. But we're not fully living. We're not just waiting. We're also living in this moment very intentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the way that we carry out our faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being about the business now.
Yeah.
And I think there was that thing where, you know, in Luke 17, when they ask, you know, is it, you know, how will we know when these things take place and the kingdom comes, etc. Like, and he basically says, like, it's not even the right question because the kingdom's already in your midst. And then he goes on to elaborate that you won't know the day or the hour, etc. So don't bother trying to figure it out. But I think, honestly, if we should long for the kingdom to come, and I long for it, as much as anyone. But at the same time, then, like, if we long for that, then shouldn't that longing drive us, like you're saying, that longing should drive us towards taking part in the little tiny hints of kingdom that we already have access to in our own life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you, a criticism that used to be levied against Christians was like they're too heavenly minded to be any earthly good, which is nonsense. First, because, and I think it's C.S. Lewis who, you can look up, Google the quote, C.S. Lewis, too heavenly minded to be any earthly good, and he'll tell you what he actually said. But what I remember him saying was basically like, no, we have to be heavenly minded, and it's people who are heavenly minded who are then going to be motivated and energized to actually like do something in the world now. Only people who believe in a better world, believe a better world is coming, feel like they belong to that better world, are then going to turn around and feel compelled to do what little pathetic things they can to actualize some of that better world in their own life, which is kind of what you were saying a little bit, like directing your energies there. I should have put that in the sermon. Next year.
Had you talked to me beforehand?
Yeah. Noah, would you, in lieu of it being the new Brock, would you accept a position as my past preaching ghostwriter?
There we go.
You want to be my ghostwriter? Everyone has one.
Consultation.
Kanye used to have a
call it a
ghostwriter, but
consultation.
now his ghostwriter is the Holy Spirit, so he doesn't have one anymore. When the podcast done and the lamp is dark and Noah is the only face I see, I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as Brock come back to me. Oh, Brock, Lolly, come back, I need you, Brock, come back. I'm a mess without you, man. I'm doing all I can. But Brock, I need you, Brock, Lolly, oh, come back to the podcast.